A dominant seventh chord is a major chord with a minor 7 on top. For those of you who don't like traditional interval names, a minor 7 is 2 halftones short, or you can call it a dominant 7 interval. Let's start off with the middle inversion of a G7 chord. Does this fit that definition? Well, it turns out there are two answers. If we treat this chord as just a chord, regardless of where it goes next, we can easily use this definition, and many musicians do. But this is a very general definition that says a chord is what it is, regardless of spelling, how we get there, and where we go next. There is a second, very different definition, which is extremely specific, and this is used by more conservative traditional musicians. This definition says that the G7 chord must go to C major or C minor and no place else. This is commonly referred to as a 5-7 chord. When it is in root position, it has to be stacked like a snowman. Jazz and pop musicians seem to mostly use this general definition. So when this chord is used as a 5-7 chord, they simply call it a 5-7 chord and leave it at that. This seems to me to be the easiest and the most practical method for analyzing this chord. Let's start off using this G7 chord as a 5-7 chord. It can only go to C major or C minor. Now let's find out what happens if that same G7 chord resolves 1/2 tone lower to B major or B minor. For reasons that are way too complicated to go into in this video, this other resolution is called an augmented 6th chord and also a German 6th chord. But that refers to spelling, and that spelling is not always used. So I prefer to think about it as a dominant 7 chord that resolves 1/2 tone too low. Here is that same idea, finishing up with a traditional 5-7 chord. It turns out that there are many other places that this G7 chord can go to that are more exotic. But let's only stick today to these two very different resolutions. So now we have a G7 chord going to two very different places.